Okay guys, we're jumping right back in. This will be part 6. Look, this is a step-by-step. These things are that you might be blowing through them and going, oh, this is easy. Oh, yeah, whatever, man. What's the real secret to this? The real secret to this is every single step. The first one is you got to understand and completely comprehend and recognize and accept what abuse is and how pervasive it is in our societies. If you don't recognize and accept these things and follow these things and make them a part of you, you are stuck in your old programming. You are stuck in your mind slave box. And going into this video, none of it's going to make sense. You're going to know it maybe in your head, like everything else that we've been programmed with. We know it in our heads, but it's not a part of us because it doesn't fit into our abusive societies and our toxic systems where we got to work, and we're constantly going, and we're constantly seeking dopamine hits, and we're constantly running away from things, and we're constantly not using the faculties of our mind. We're actually just reacting through ego because ego is based on a survival program and is unable to think or think critically. So, again, if you are not fully imbuing and reprogramming yourself and laying your foundation and sorting these things out and going through a full life review and thought review and everything else review of your life and your current situation and where you're at and what you're doing and what your behaviors are and what your thoughts are and what your emotions are, you're not going to get anywhere with this. Period. It's that simple. You got to recognize and accept things for what they are. Period. No more justifying, no more excusing, no more going, well, it's just the way it is. No more going, well, he's doing it. No more going, well, I thought that was what we're supposed to do. No, all of that's got to go. All of it. Because that is, if you still have that mindset, there's no way you're going to heal anything. You're not going to heal means to become whole, guys. If you are not completely imbuing these things into you, then you are simply putting a Band-Aid on a broken leg. That's all you're doing. And it doesn't matter, just because that Band-Aid is better than that Band-Aid doesn't make it fucking the fix for a broken leg. You're going to have to reclaim your authority. The only way you can reclaim your authority is to recognize and accept that you've been giving it away your whole life. If you're refusing to recognize and accept that, then there's no way to reclaim your authority. Detaching, quit idolizing, quit worshiping. If you're completely addicted to your dopamine hits and your distractions and everything else to take your focus away from you, you're never going to be able to detach. And if the ego is ingrained, guys, the attachment is all coming from the mind slave box. When you're a free person, when you're a completely free human, there is no attachment to anything other than the attachment of the soul to the physical avatar. But other than that, there's no attachment to anything. Attachment is a survival part of the survival mechanism. Attachment is a flight or fight response of prolonged trauma and abuse. That's all attachment is. We need to detach. But first you have to recognize and accept things for what they are and reclaim your authority. Otherwise you have no reason to detach. You need to be attached to everything. That's your lifeline. That's the only way the ego survives is through all your dopamine hits and everything else. And then you got to refocus that attention. You got to refocus your attention, energy, and focus onto yourself, onto your issues, onto fixing your shit, onto freeing yourself from the mind slave box, getting out of that box, reclaiming your authority, reclaiming your essence, reclaiming your birthright. And by refocusing your attention and realizing where you're putting your focus and where your energy is going, now you're starting to get the train's starting to pull out of the station now. Get it? You've got that torque going. That torque, it's getting you moving. You're putting it in. You're changing your whole thought on everything. You're breaking out of the mind slave box. Because what we'll be covering on this video is utilizing the faculties of your mind. That's what's going on in this video. And this is no joke. This is where the rubber hits the road, guys. This is where, there's no turning back. Either you're doing this or you're not. There's no half-assing it. There's no sitting on the fence. There's no batting for both teams. There's no, having the best of both worlds, having your cake and eating it too. None of this stuff goes together. This mind slave box does not go with anything outside of it. Everything else that you see, that you've been seeing on this chalkboard, does not go or agree with that mind slave box. Everything outside of that mind slave box on this board makes you an outlaw, a rebel, and crazy. So we're going to go over the 6 parts of the faculties of your mind. So we have 6. Some people say 7. There's different varying things, but we're going to go over 6 faculties of the human mind. Okay. The first one will be perception. And you guys, as we go through these, I'm going to show how we've only really utilized maybe a couple of these, and the only ways that we've utilized them is within the confines of that box, within the parameters that they've laid for us, not out, don't go outside the bounds. So the first one's perception, the way we see things. Everything that we see and we visualize, and the way we see things and think, well, we have to go to work. Well, I gotta have a car. Well, I gotta have insurance. Well, I gotta have stock my food fridge full of processed and animal flesh and all the other poisons, and have all the electronics in my kitchen to be able to cook them and kill them and everything else. So I gotta do that. So that's your perception. And that perception is based off of everything within that programming box. So I'd say perception is the very first thing of the faculties of your mind that everybody pretty much uses, is their perception, okay? It means nothing. It doesn't mean you're thinking. It's just the way you perceive things based on the programming that's been put in, okay? Your will. Ability to focus or concentrate on something. Again, this ties back into, reclaiming your attention, your focus, and energy on yourself. This is asserting your will, the ability to focus or concentrate on something. Now you say, oh, I've been exercising my will my whole life. Yeah, doing what? Focusing on your addictions, focusing on your dopamine hits, focusing on the breads and circuses, anything to keep you occupied and keep you away and from having to face your shit, and focus on the things that this healing is going to take in order to become whole again, in order to break out of the mind slave box. Okay? So the will, the ability to focus or concentrate on something. By doing this healing, you are, for the first time in your life, actually initiating your will in not only a proper manner, but in the only manner that is not within the parameters set before you inside of the mind slave box. You are now becoming an outlaw, a rebel, and a crazy person. Welcome to being a human. What it means to be a human. That's what it means to be a human in this this sick, toxic world that we live in, of control and illusion and the matrix system. You are an outlaw, a rebel, and crazy if you are going to take your own will, the faculty of your mind, your will, and focus and use that ability to focus or concentrate on something other than what's in this box, okay? Which is our healing. And by doing that, you are going to initiate the only change in the world that you can really do that has any good effect, any positive effect, that really is any true change. The third faculty of the mind is imagination. That's creating things in our mind. Again, you have these creative people who become like artists, music artists, or artists, painters, or, whatever these creative things are, right? And they say that these people can think outside the box and all of these things. What they're really doing is just accessing, what it appears to me to be is these people are just accessing, what is that called? The library of knowledge that we all can get. I can't remember. If you guys want to leave the name in the comments, or if I remember later, I'll leave the name in the comments of what that is. Oh, it's right there. But yeah, so imagination is creating things in our mind. Again, we've been operating inside this. Most of us, 99% of us have, we think we're creating things in our mind, but we're really just putting concepts and things that we've perceived from, living in this mind slave box, and we're just putting them together in different ways and going, oh, I'm creating things. Look, I'm so imaginative. No, imagination is getting back to when you were a child and the world was open to you. If you weren't highly, highly abused and traumatized and living, under rigorous circumstances, you at least were able to escape in your mind and be an imaginative child and talk to imaginary animals and do all these things that, we look at as adults and we go, you stupid kid, and that's why we look at kids as stupid, because they fully utilize their imagination. So it's getting back to that childlike mentality of, before you're completely downloaded on these programs and fully enslaved in your mind slave box, these children are able to get outside of that because the parameters haven't been, they have no respect for those parameters yet, because they don't even understand, unless they've been, again, like I said, unless they've been highly abused and traumatized and lived under rigorous circumstances, they've at least had that freedom to be in their minds. So imagination is an important one, but again, just like perception, we think that, oh, I've been using my faculties all along. Perception, imagination, yeah, the will. But yeah, you've been using all of these things within the confines of your slave box, okay? You have to keep going back to that and remembering that. We're going to skip this one because that's my favorite. Well, no, we'll go ahead and do memory. So memory we got next. Okay, we'll call that the fourth faculty of the mind. Memory is the ability to recall experiences and what we absorb through our senses. Again, this one is skewed because memory is what we consider when, that's why they put us in these schools, right? And we have to memorize their indoctrination. We have to memorize their propaganda. And then we have to take tests and prove to them that we memorized it, right? And that's why they make us do it over and over. And every year in school, we're pretty much learning the same horse shit over and over. And then they just add a little bit extra and they continue to test and test and test, because what they're doing is they're building the walls of that mind slave box thicker and higher to make sure that you're fully enslaved inside of their parameters, and before you turn 18 and they unleash you on the world and unleash you from your parents, that you are going to go straight into the workforce or join the military and go kill poor brown people all over the world, or these types of things without thinking critically about them. And then again, recall. So memory is recalling experiences and what we absorb through our senses. They have through the mind slave, through the abusive and traumatic programming, they again separating our soul and creating that ego and putting it in the driver's seat of this avatar. That we have to completely forego our intuition, which we're going to get to right now. So we think we have our memory and the recall of that we're supposed to have, but what we're really operating at is ego, again, survival character mode, guys, fight or flight, which is just a reaction, okay, just based off of everything that we've experienced that we absorb through our senses. But the other memory would come from intuition, and people who are very intuitive, especially women, my whole life it was always mostly women, are extremely intuitive. Which intuition is knowing things that are not immediately obvious to our main senses. They call it main. Listen to this wording, guys. They call it your main senses. Why do they call it your main sense? Because those are the ones that this box focuses on, all the physical senses, right? The ears, the eyes, all the ones that they can imbue you with your programming. They cannot imbue and propagandize and indoctrinate your intuition. Or your feeling, your sensing of things, like inside, that sixth sense, right? They can't propagandize and fuck with that because that is your innate knowing. That is your birthright. Again, they squash that intuition. They make fun of those things. They say, oh, you're just crazy. Oh, you're just imagining. Oh, you're psychotic, right? When we try to use our intuition. And I'm going to tie some of this is going to tie back in together. The sixth faculty of our minds is reasoning. This is my favorite, is reasoning. I think this is the most important. They're all very important, but again, all of them have been skewed. This one's been pushed down, and our ability to reason has been, again, it's a fallacy because we think we've been reasoning our whole lives because they call it logical and illogical reasoning, right? But surface level reasoning within this mind slave box is, doing things that, are socially acceptable, doing things that are in the style, in the fad right now. Right? They call it illogical to dress differently than a group of people. If everybody at your office is wearing a suit and a tie and you come in wearing a tie-dye t-shirt and fucking a pair of, of weird round Elton John glasses, they're going to call you illogical. That's illogical. Why would you ever do that? That makes no sense. Well, it makes no sense to who? It makes no sense to all the mind slaves who are group thinking and going along to get along, right? And fitting in, so that way, the focus and attention isn't on them. So again, inside the mind slave box, they have logical and illogical reasoning, but that kind of reasoning is just surface level reasoning. And what that is again, giving you a set of parameters to operate off of and within, and then telling you that's the limits. And, you're either going to make logical or illogical decisions based on that reasoning. What is reasoning? Reasoning is the highest faculty of the human mind by which man is distinguished from brutes. Okay, this is what distinguishes us from their so-called cavemen or their brutes. Okay, now the brutes goes back to apex predators, right? Apex predators are empathic, all-knowing, all feeling, connected to everything, biological beings ran by an intelligent light being, right? So they completely disregard reasoning. They muddy the waters on all these, and they use these definitions as far as the mind slave box. Because, reasoning is the highest faculty of the human mind by which man is distinguished from brutes, and which enables him to contemplate things, right? Spiritual as well as physical, to weigh all that can be said or thought for and against them, and hence to draw conclusions and to act accordingly. Okay, so your ability to reason is taking all these things outside of you, all these thoughts, ideas that maybe stew in your head, which are influenced by the things outside of you, right? By your environment, by social structures, by your peers, by your all the controllers, all the abusers. And you're taking those things, and what you're doing is you're running them through, and then you're coming to all the logical conclusions, putting them all together, right? You're piecing them all together, and you're coming to all the different logical conclusions, and then you're choosing the best path. And this is where your intuition ties in with reasoning. Is you got to be careful, because if you don't use your intuition in your reasoning process, then your reasoning is again choosing between the parameters, the choices, the limited choices, the limited free will, the imaginary free will that they give you within the mind slave box. So you have to break out of that box and utilize your intuition and use that in your reasoning, okay? Because otherwise you're just using your nose, your eyes, your ears, and that's what they're calling reality. When in reality, we are a soul, an eternal soul, light being, all-powerful, all-knowing soul that occupies this highly advanced physical avatar. But what they have you doing is they've got you, disregarding that part of it. They call you an apex predator, and that you came from monkeys, and that you came from tadpoles, and that there was a big bang and everything's for no reason, and you got one life and you better live it and do the. But then they tell you that you've got all these laws to keep you under control because you might do bad things. And if you're like, well, I'm not going to do bad things, well, like, so your neighbor might. So yeah, that's why we got all these laws and rules. Right, so they're constantly justifying why they have you enslaved, and then you agree with it for the illusion of safety. So when you do that, you're giving up your intuition. You're constantly having to go against your intuition. You're constantly having to go against that thing that causes your cognitive dissonance, because your programming is there, but your intuition's going, something's wrong here. I don't think we should be playing these games. I don't think we should be spending 40, 60 hours a week at work. I don't think this is good for the family unit. I don't think this is good for my health. I don't think this is good. Well, everybody else is doing it. Oh, fuck. Okay, get back in the mind slave box. Everybody else is doing it. I guess I just got to man up. Survival of the fittest, right? So they've crushed our reasoning. So instead of just going, everybody else is doing it, we sit there and we go, what we're doing in this healing and what I'm doing physically, and I'll give you an example of what I've been doing. I was a workaholic my whole life. Just like I was an alcoholic, I was a workaholic. And now, I realize all these things were distractions to keep me occupied, to keep me feeling like I have some kind of purpose, that I'm special, to feel confident in myself and all of this. They were all falsities, all just parts of the ego just built up, again, on a shaky foundation. And then when my health declined because of multiple brain injuries throughout my life, I was realizing that, oh shit, my options are becoming more and more limited here. And, the things that I thought I could just keep on perpetuating and the addictions that I kept doing became impossible. So I had to face things. I didn't have a choice. And so what I had to do was I had to sit there, when I had this last brain injury, I didn't have a choice. I had a reason. I had to sit there and go, well, is work the end all be all? Is this what it's all about? Proving to people that you're not lazy, proving, and then I realized, wait a minute, everything I'm doing is to show other people and to try to prove to other people that I'm worthy. Where's that coming from? So, that is the reasoning. That is the real deep introspection and reasoning that's needed, that's outside of this box, because that box, in order to think like that, even though I thought outside the box a lot, I had to get completely outside. I mean, everything. I had to break all that programming, all those habits, all those addictions, everything, in order to completely free myself out of that fucking box. That's how pervasive the programming and the indoctrination has been imbued into us since birth, again, and reinforced all through our developmental years. And they say 0 to 7 is determined. What you do, what happens to you between the ages of 0 and 7 determines the rest of your life, pretty much. That's when your programming set in. That's when your brain, a child's brain state is in those whatever waves that are very suggestive waves. They're influenced very easily. They call it a hypnotic state between the ages of 0 and 7. So, obviously, whatever is imbued in you at that time, that's why it's easiest to learn a language. Little children that age can learn 12 different languages at the drop of a hat. But, you get to be 10, 12 years old, and it's like, oh man, it becomes hard, and then you get to be an adult, and it's like almost impossible for most of us to fucking learn another language. So again, reasoning is the highest faculty of the human mind, okay? It's by which man is distinguished from brutes. So to be able to introspect this deeply, again, this is taking us away and completely squashing that lie that they've sold us, that manipulation, that illusion that we're apex predators that just somehow evolved and chose to evolve from fucking apes and, are sitting here now with a consciousness because that evolved too. And where did it all come from? Oh, just like that, the fucking universe exploded and here we all are, right? And so that once you start using your reasoning and the faculties of your mind, you realize that this all came from somebody else's imagination, right? This completely came from somebody else's imagination, and it's obviously that their imagination that they were using was to enslave people and put them in a box and keep them from using their own imaginations. So it enables, our faculty of reason enables us to contemplate things spiritual as well as physical, to weigh all that can be said or thought for and against them. So that's, you're deeply thinking and weighing out everything all by yourself, not through the programming of the slave box, but all through your own, relying on your own understanding, right? And hence to draw conclusions and to act accordingly. And so that's the last step of reasoning. You are going to act in the proper way according to the conclusions you came to. You aren't going to come to conclusions and then go, oh, well, yeah, it'd be nice if I could do something about that, but it's just the way it is. So again, going back to my example, guys, so I use my process of reasoning, and now I work as little as possible. I see that the money thing is all a game. It's an illusion. I see that all of these things work. All of these things are just a distraction away from our healing. And my focus is, what I have completely 100% committed myself to, is to complete healing, to becoming whole, no matter what it takes, no matter what is involved, using my intuition, using my reasoning, and not being afraid of what I come up with. I'll use my imagination for certain things, to fit in, but it's all based off of my reasoning. I'll go with my imagination again off my intuition. I'm using my will. I am asserting my will. Nobody is telling me what to do. Nobody's forcing me to go to work. Nobody's forcing me to do anything other than the little things I got to do to be able to, keep the house over my head in a car to be able to get back and forth to work. But otherwise, I'm almost out of this box, guys. I'm stepping out of the box big time, right? And my perception is not coming from there anymore. My perception, I'm being able to see things through my reasoning and my intuition and my imagination, and by focusing my will on myself, I'm breaking out of that box. So intuition is knowing things that are not immediately obvious to our main senses. Its definition of your senses is perception of the mind, okay? Sensation, a feeling, apprehension through the intellect, right? Apprehension through the intellect, which, again, the apprehension through the intellect would be knowing that something isn't right. Recognition, understanding, discernment, the faculty of thinking and feeling. So, yeah, you guys can see where they've skewed just about every single one of these things and misinterpreted it and really limited it and put it within a small set of parameters and then shoved it inside that mind slave box. And they said, okay, you can use these things, but it all has to be within here. Right? It all has to be, every bit of imagination you have has to be within the confines and things that we've given you to be able to use your imagination. Your perception and the way you perceive things it can only be from inside of here. Your intuition is not yours. That's craziness. All you have is sight, see, smell, and feel, right? Touch, taste. That's it. Everything else, what you deep down inside you, your soul that comes knocking, that's crazy. If you talk about that, you're psychotic, you're crazy, you're a rebel, you're outlaw. In fact, we think you have a mental disorder. We're going to get you checked out and possibly get you checked into a mental hospital for that shit and put you on some highly toxic drugs that'll fucking get you right in line and back in that mind slave box, because those drugs will inhibit and not allow you to access your ability to reason or assert your will, right? That's what they do. They try to numb you down. That's what school's all about. School's about taking these things away from you, misinterpreting them, skewing them, and then forming and fitting them and crushing them down, and then fitting inside that mind slave box. So again, guys, this is a whole step-by-step process. You have to do one at a time. You have to completely understand what abuse means. You have to recognize and accept and look around. You have to fully commit yourself to this healing. There's no batting on both sides. There's no playing games. There's no going, oh, well, I healed today and, next week I'll take off, and then, I might look at it again after that, and then take a couple hours here and a couple hours there. And, well, last week I did pretty good with my healing. I did juice one day, and then, but what'd you do the rest of the week? You indulged in all your other addictions. You were stuck to your TV. You were out. You got drunk 3 nights that week. You're still smoking a pack of cigarettes. You're still eating animal flesh and processed foods. You're still, the first 6 days that week. All of these things, guys. Again, this takes a full commitment, and it takes every step of this to be able, one step after the other, to be able to get through these things. Because if you're not doing the first things, recognizing, accepting, reclaiming your authority, detaching, refocusing your energy and attention and focus on yourself, and then you can't even get to this step. You can't initiate your will unless you're doing these things. You can't, use your faculties of reasoning, the highest faculty of the human mind, outside of that box, unless you are, absolutely, reclaiming your authority and refusing to follow another's authority and rulership over you. So this is how you get free, guys. But it's so simple. See, and this is the thing. These things are so goddamn simple. And you'll just glaze through this video series, and you'll be like, "Oh, okay, I got it. Yeah. There's got to be more to it. There's definitely more to this, and I'm just waiting for his next video." When you haven't even imbued this and taken it into you, because once you do, you're not going to keep on sitting on the edge of your seat for me to do another video, because you'll be creating yourself. You'll be healing and opening these doors to your intuition and to your imagination yourself. You won't need to be entertained. You won't need to, find these dopamine hits and these distractions. You won't have a need for any of that. The only reason you have a need for that right now is because, you're still addicted. Your ego, you're running around scared and reacting to everything. So there it is. Take care of yourselves, guys. Nobody else will.